Prince Featherhead and Princess Calandine. Once upon a time, in a peaceful kingdom, there lived a king. The king was the best person in the whole wide world. He was so generous that he gave away all his treasure for the welfare of people, until he had nothing left to live upon. Now this came to the ears of their neighboring King Bruin, who promptly raised a large army and marched into their country. The poor king, having no means of defending his kingdom, was forced to disguise himself with a false beard, and carrying his only son, the little Prince Featherhead, in his arms, and accompanied only by the queen, escaped into the wild country. They roamed and roamed and roamed until they found themselves in a charming green valley. As they looked round them with delight, a voice said suddenly,
"Fish, and see what you will catch."
The king and the queen were shocked, but did as the voice told them. And pretty soon, he had caught a big fish, which made an excellent meal. Thanking the voice after their meal, the king and the queen decided it was there that they would live. The king made a small wooden house, which was a stark contrast to the once magnificent palace that they lived in. There they would live in their humble abode, and the king would fish all day, for fish were not only abundant and easily caught, but also very beautiful, with glittering scales of every imaginable hue. Life was simpler, happier, and more content than ever. Now, unbeknownst to the king and the queen, the fairy of the beech woods lived in the lovely valley, and it was she who had, in pity for their forlorn condition, sent the king such good luck to his fishing. Also, she loved children, and little Prince Featherhead, who never cried and grew prettier day by day, quite won her heart. And as time passed, she made the acquaintance of the king and the queen without letting them know that she was a fairy.
Good morning to the royal couple. Lovely day, isn't it?
Shh! Beechwoods! You shouldn't call us that here.
You worry too much. Where is our prince this morning?
Where do you think?
Well, do you mind if I take him to the town today? The young boy must learn that there is a world outside.
The king and the queen looked at each other, concerned. But they knew that Beechwood was right, for a boy ought to learn about the world while growing up. Sure, but please bring him back before dusk.
Of course, of course.
And thus began a daily routine. The fairy Beechwood would carry off the prince to her palace, where she regaled him with cakes and tarts and every other good thing. This was the way she chose of making him fond of her. Prince Featherhead, who at first was quite shocked to learn that she was a fairy, later thanked her for her kindness.
Remember, all of this is yours, but you must never tell your parents who I am. Deal?
Deal.
Life went on like the wheels of a carriage in a long, smooth road, and Prince Featherhead grew up to become a charming young man. But despite his good looks, he grew so vain and frivolous that he quitted his peaceful country life in disgust and rushed eagerly after all the foolish gaieties of the neighboring town, where his handsome face and charming manners speedily made him popular. Our son, how is he?
He is good, Your Highness, and I am sorry. I didn't know that.
Oh, don't be sorry, please. You only wanted his good. I guess it is the royal blood in him that cannot cope up with the country lifestyle. The king and the queen were sad, and Fairy Beechwood was equally worried. Just at this time, she received a visit from an old friend of hers called Calandine, who rushed into her house so breathless with rage that she could hardly speak.
Whoa, relax. What is it?
You got to help me.
With what?
Saradine told Fairy Beechwood about a certain princess called Calandine of the Summer Island, whom she helped raise and now regretted her deeds.
But why?
I am tired of all her demands. She just loves herself and feels she's the most superior. I just couldn't anymore, so I put her in the middle of a desert.
Saradine, sister, you are a fairy. You cannot be so impulsive. Anyway, you had better hand her over to me. I don't think so very badly of her after all. I'll just cure her vanity by making her love someone better than herself. And I know just the right guy.
Saradine willingly consented to this arrangement, and the old fairy's first care was to smooth away all the difficulties which surrounded the princess, and lead her by the mossy path overhung with trees to the bower of the king and queen. The couple were immensely surprised at her appearance, and her charming face, they welcomed her heartily. Over the next few days, Calandine helped the queen to keep house, and very soon they loved her dearly. The queen would tell her all about her son, the handsome and charming Prince Featherhead, and somehow Princess Calandine grew a strange desire to see him. Fairy Beechwood, who knew just what the princess was thinking about, decided it was now time.
Princess, come with me.
Fairy Beechwood took Calandine to her palace, but not before putting a spell. When the prince arrived at the palace, more handsome and fascinating than Calandine had been led to expect, she was immediately attracted to him. Prince Featherhead, however—
Fairy Mother, how are you? It's been so long.
You don't have the time for me anymore, son, do you? Anyway, I'd like you to meet…
Hi, sorry, I have to speak with your fairy mother, please.
Calandine was shocked to see that the prince paid no heed to her. This was a first. Calandine exerted all her wit and gaiety to amuse him, but with no better success.
What is happening? I am not getting attention? Me?
Calandine was deeply mortified, since for her part, she was mesmerized by the prince, and for the first time in her life, she wanted something that looked impossible. Fairy Beechwood saw it all with a grin on her face. And when they left from the palace, she had a portrait of Calandine sent to the prince. This portrait, however, was not enchanted.
Oh my God! Who is she?
He positively could not tear his eyes away from it, and exclaimed aloud that never, ever had he seen anything so lovely and so graceful. The beauties of the town now no longer pleased him. Their witty speeches had ceased to amuse, and indeed, for their parts, they found the prince far less amiable than of yore, and were not sorry when he declared that, after all, a country life suited him best, and went back to his parents, who were only too glad to have their son back. Now, as you can tell, Princess Saradine was overjoyed to see Prince Featherhead, but she had once noticed the change in him, and was deeply curious to find the reason of it. In the next few days, she was surprised to see that Prince Featherhead now sought her company, and seemed to take pleasure in talking to her, and yet the princess knew that he was in love with someone else.
Who is it, if I may ask?
I don't know her, friend. All I know is that she is my destiny.
Oh, how I wish it was I.
More time passed, and Calandine and Featherhead became very good friends. Strangely, the prince began to see glimpses of the lady in the portrait in Calandine, although he never quite said it out loud. One day, Fairy Serendine came to the valley along with Fairy Beechwood and announced that it was time Calandine returned to her castle.
What? No, you can't.
Why not, Prince?
Because...
Because what?
Nothing.
A teardrop escaped Calandine's eyes, for she had thought that in the last few days, the prince had fallen in love with her too.
Let's go, Fairy Mother.
No, wait. Calandine, I mean, Princess Calandine. I am in love with you. Please don't leave me.
And at that moment, a bright light illuminated. When it receded, Prince Featherhead saw that standing in front of him was Calandine, but her face was just like that of the lady in the picture.
What?
What is it?
Let me explain.
And so, Fairy Beechwood explained everything to the prince and the princess, who, although shocked, were utterly happy. Both had found true love and had also learned their lessons. What next? Well, not a grand wedding, but something better. With the help of Calandine's army, they got back their kingdom by defeating King Bruin. And then came the grand wedding. And then they had kids. And as you already know, they lived happily ever after.